Monday, November 29th. This is our open mic night. We'll have no specific agenda. If you'd like to be heard, if you'll just raise your name and I'll call you, and we'll, if you could fill in a speaker card before you leave. We'd like to begin this meeting with our traditional pledge, and I have two Boy Scouts, and I'd like to invite them to come forward and lead us in the pledge. If we'd all stand and face the flag. Gentlemen, if you'll come forward. Well, you're in charge now. However you want to do this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And gentlemen, if you'll come to the microphone and introduce yourselves and tell us the purpose that you're here for tonight.
I'm Hunter Wortham at Troop 431 here at Roswell United Methodist Church. I'm a Life Scout, and I need a requirement for sit in the community.
Citizenship in the community.
To attend a meeting.
Welcome. And yes, young man?
I'm Jacob Kramer from 481, and I'm here for communications.
Communications. Well, most folks are here for citizenship, but communications, that's one of the reasons I'll get all of our Boy Scouts to come to the microphone and get a little public speaking in. Gentlemen, welcome here tonight. I would encourage you to work forward toward that eagle. Councilman Orleans was a Boy Scout, and I am an Eagle Scout, and we're both learned to be prepared from that institution. And Councilmember Dr. Betty Price's son recently received an Eagle, so we've got a lot of scouting in this career, and it's a great training program. Welcome to City Council meeting. Who would like to speak first tonight? If you'll raise your hand. Yes, sir, come forward. If you give us your name and address. And the floor is yours.
My name is Bill Glenn. Address is 9335 Indian Springs Drive. Actually, I have a couple items. It'll be real quick. The first one is about the deer hunting over in Martin's Landing. I just don't think we need to be hunting deer in the city limits of Roswell. And I would appreciate it if you would just at least think about passing an ordinance against hunting in the city limits.
Mr. Halsey, would you advise Mr. Glenn on the state rules about hunting?
Well, the city can't control hunting. We do have regulations on the discharge of firearms and the use of bow and arrow, and that's as far as the state will let us go. We can't ban deer hunting.
Well, what is the restriction on the bow and arrow? Because that was, y'all are all familiar with the guy over here. It was on the news. What is the restriction on the bow and arrow?
You're allowed to hunt on private land if you own it yourself. I believe the distance is, the stand has to be at least 150 feet away from the property line. If you're hunting on someone else's property, you have to have the permission of the owner. You also have to have gotten a permit from the police department before you can hunt.
Okay, well, my concern wasn't the safety of it. It was just the killing of wildlife. You know, I just, if we all went out there and started killing wildlife, there wouldn't be any.
Well, the Department of Natural Resources controls that, and in fact, I just read that they extended the bow hunting season because of an overpopulation of deer.
Great.
And that's their call.
My second one, if I'm allowed a second one, was about these boom cars, these cars riding around with the subwoofers. I live down on Indian Springs on Riverside, and the traffic backs up there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And there is an ordinance, a city ordinance, about personal or commercial vehicular music amplification and reproduction equipment, including but not limited to boom cars, shall not be operated in such a manner as to be plainly audible a distance of 50 feet in any direction from the equipment being between the hours of 8 and 10. And then it goes on to say between 8 p.m. and 10. Anyhow, it's got it back. Anyhow. But there's an ordinance against these things, but I hear them all the time. I'm sitting in my house down there, the traffic backs up. There's inevitably several boom cars that end up in the line of traffic. And it's just, it drives me crazy, and everybody else I talk to about it, it's the same thing. But since there's an ordinance, why isn't it enforced?
I think that would be addressed to our police department.
Somebody said there wasn't a realistic. It said these things come up before the judge, and he says, well, there's no way for us to measure it. Well, it says here if it can be heard within 50 feet, I can hear it in my...
This is Lieutenant McGee representing the police department. What is our policy on, if you'll come to the microphone, on enforcement of that noise ordinance regarding cars?
Mr. Mayor, the police stance is once we get complaints, we will come out and check it.
Well, they're gone. They're 5 miles down the road once you get out there to check it.
If we don't get called, we ask people to give us the description of the vehicle and the direction of travel, and we will dispatch an officer
Now,
to go get it.
if
What if
we have people patrolling...
What if you're out, patrolling, and you hear one of these? Are you going to pull him over?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Absolutely.
Because evidently these guys are just at free run, and it's just nothing. That was my impression. There's nothing.
Yes, when we're out patrolling, we have stopped several cars for that. Yes, we also have meters also, yes.
Well, I've heard that when they get a ticket and they show up in court, the judge says, well, we can't do anything about it because we can't measure it or something. We have no. But those things drive me crazy. I don't know about anybody else, but a lot of people probably have. And it's going to get worse because it's a huge, I wouldn't call it an industry, but it's a huge market for it.
Correct.
And it's my only other thing. I live down here across from the park. Can you somehow please limit the volume on those concerts?
To my understanding, are we within the city's own noise ordinance on the... Mr. Glover, if you come forward and address that issue. The city does have a noise ordinance in it, and I believe our policy is to stay within our own rules with time and decibels.
So there is some decibel consideration?
Mr. Glover can address your question.
Yes, sir. We are currently following the noise ordinance. We've had it tested. We've had sound engineers out, and we're not exceeding the limit. We started the concerts 30 minutes early, so we try to be through a little bit earlier. So we're within compliance of everything at this time.
Well, I'm building a new house and I'm moving, but I'll be in this house for another couple of years. But I just please give us some little consideration down there. It's pretty rough.
Yes, sir, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you very much.
Who would like to speak next? Yes, come forward, please. You'll give us your name and address.
I'm Melody Clark, 1335 Grand Creek Drive, Roswell 30076. Two things. One is domestic violence. What is the protocol on how many times one unit gets called on before somebody's taken away? Two, our youth. Is there a class available for free for them to go to?
Lieutenant McGee will bring him forward. You may have to sit on the front row, Lieutenant McGee. You're popular, Doug.
Regarding the state law for domestic violence, anytime we're dispatched to domestic violence, they're supposed to investigate it, and if probable cause does exist to make an arrest, we shall, and that is the verbiage from the law, we shall make an arrest. Some jurisdictions say that, if we come back, we're not allowed by law to tell them that. We're by the law to get probable cause, and once we get that, we will make an arrest.
So if you get voluntary statements from all the people in the building.
Yeah, if you'll come to the microphone.
We have a situation where we've had many phone calls on the same unit. People have actually broken their leases to get out of it, and the SWAT team has been there. The lady has cursed the officers out. She refused to let them in the house. There's a little girl inside that she doesn't have custody. She's not supposed to have custody of. And it's very abusive. I unfortunately live right next door to her, and I have a child that's got panic anxiety disorder. And anytime these violence outbreaks occur, and the law enforcement is brought out, nothing occurs. Even if we all sign a voluntary statement, this right now as we speak, as I left my home, my 15-year-old daughter's at home and they're arguing loudly. My concern is that someone's going to die. Is it a little girl? Is it my daughter who's going to catch a bullet through the wall if one of them have a gun? I mean, they've been out to the house several times, and I've been living there almost 11 months now. The law enforcement get there, both parties say, no, there's not a problem, everything's okay. But there is a problem. The whole building is telling you there's a problem. So both parties are able to still live there and still maintain their domestic violence. It's not right.
I don't know the particulars of this particular case that you're talking about, but I assure you that once the officers get there and they find probable cause, it's a little bit of a difference from taking voluntary statements and doing an investigation. I'm sure there's an investigation occurring. Like I said, I don't know particulars of this particular situation, but once probable cause is established, warrants will be let and the person will be arrested.
You have an address?
1335, apartment D. She's an A. And there's Grand Creek, Aspen Point Apartments. So I just would like it to stop, because now it's to the point where nobody even calls the law enforcement anymore because it's useless. So now what's happening is they're so confident in the fact that no one's going to come to their house anymore. The guy is now starting to retaliate. And my fear is that he's going to end up hurting her when in fact she was the true aggressor from the very beginning. And now he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail because everybody dismissed the fact that she was abusing him for the last 10 months. Everybody has a breaking point. So that's my concern.
Lieutenant McGee, is this something that our crime-free housing program for the multifamily communities might be applicable to?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
And that's a Sergeant Pitts, Officer Pitts. You might ask him to look into that also.
I will.
There are two programs. There's the specific offense, and then we work with the landlords through this crime-free housing. Officer Pitts works with the landlords, and we'll see if there's something he can do working with the landlord.
Yeah, we're just, my daughter is a nervous wreck already. It's pretty ridiculous.
We appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
The other thing is, you might want to stay close. I don't know who answers this, but the drug that are on our streets in Roswell, it's free-base marijuana. It's got chemical bases in it, and it's stuff called Northern Lights, Perp, Kush. There's a million different ones. And my concern is that, while our students are going to school, these transactions are being made. There's truancy, high-end truancy. There's fighting. There's kids killing each other. There's kids in Summit Ridge because of mental breakdowns, withdrawing from it. And I would just like to see or ask or inquire, is there a free class available in the city of Roswell so that our kids can have at least an educated decision, a class that would maybe break down like the ingredients. What's in Northern Lights? This is what you're smoking. What's in Kush? Why do they call it Kush? And these are the ingredients in it. And all these different diverse names for marijuana. And as long as our kids are smoking it, we're going to have these problems, and the crime is going to rise. And I see the numbers on the web pages. Roswell is one of the third most safest city, best place to raise your family. But I've been here 8 years, and it's a nightmare. And I don't see it getting better. It's worse. So I would like to see a class available for them. Is that possible?
Yes, those classes are possible through our crime information place, and also through our community development that we have over there. And also Pitts also does some of the talking on that as far as explaining, and we do have drug units that come out and we'll give classes on that.
Where can I put the word out? I mean, what can I do as a citizen to let my community, my immediate neighborhood, my youth, my school, the kids in the school, the parents, anybody who cares, to tell them, hey, this class is available at such time, such place. It's free, and let your child go in here. You feel what I'm saying? Where do I tell them to go? Where do I go?
You can call our main number at the police department and ask for our community relations, and also you can call my office directly, and I will get you in touch with the classes.
The police department.
Correct.
And your name?
Lieutenant McGee, do you have a card?
Yes, sir.
You'll give her a card, please?
Sure.
Thank you. What? Can I have that card?
Yes, I'll do.
Okay. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, and we look forward to working with you on this. Who would like to speak next? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Hi, Keith Badalamenti, 355 Alpine Drive, Roswell. I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to code enforcement and those of you that have corresponded with me over the last now it's a couple years. What started off as a nuisance complaint turned into the great chicken debate. I'm thankful for the outcome of what that process brought forward, but unfortunately I'm still dealing with the initial complaint of a nuisance. With Andrew's 100 to 200 animals ranging from chickens, roosters, turkeys, and pigs, I'm not only figuratively, but literally am living next to a pigsty. When I bought my property in 2002, I lived next to a guy by the name of Andrew who was renting next to me. Now, I'm living next to Phoebe Farms USDA NPIP number 1097GA. I don't know how this is acceptable in a residential area. I no longer can enjoy my property because of the noise and stench coming from his property. If anyone would like to discuss this further, I'm available any day, any time to meet with you to discuss it. Again, thank you to code enforcement for responding to the complaints that have been brought to them by me and the neighbors that surround that property. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who'd like to speak next? If anyone else wishes to speak tonight? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Can you set this up for me, please? Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing. I want to first start off and request an update, Councilwoman Wynn, on your Phase 4 water well project. I'd like to know where we stand on that. The last conversation we had was that you were running a production test well. That was several months ago. I'm still waiting for a feasibility study, if one has been done. I want to know where we stand. I believe this was 5 phases, and you're well along on Phase 4. Please bring me up to speed on this.
Mr. Mooring? And if you're talking about are you talking about our test wells, Mr. Fleck?
Yes, ma'am.
We have one well that has been successful. It is producing around 400,000 gallons per day.
I'm sorry, how many gallons?
Approximately 400,000 gallons per day.
Capable of producing.
Capable of producing approximately 400,000 gallons per day. And right now, I think it was in February 2010, we have did an application for a permit from the EPD, and we're still waiting on the permit. But is that all you need on that one, Mr. Fleck?
But Councilmember Wynn has prevailed upon our legislature to come in on the side of Roswell to encourage the Georgia EPD to issue a permit.
Yes, sir.
And we thank Becky Wynn for prevailing upon our legislators to get that water moving.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mayor. Any other questions on that, Mr. Fleck?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Mr. Mooring, one of the things that you had discussed from day one on this issue was the economic viability. Your test well has a capacity of 400,000 per day, and yet you're targeting for 2 million. And you projected cost of the groundwater being 55 cents. I've yet to have anybody explain to me how you came up with that number in the first place, and where we stand on the feasibility study. If you're going to run a test well, you got 400,000 gallons per day. You're now looking for a permit. What's it going to cost to purify this water and put it online? That's what I want to know. Economic feasibility study.
You want me to?
I think the question had to do with the deep well.
Yes, sir.
The feasibility of using the deep well for a source of water and the cost?
We had a report done by a consultant that was published in July of this year, and in that report there was an estimate for the O&M cost of this groundwater well to be between 50 and 60 cents per 1,000 gallons. That is the basis of that 55-cent estimate. And
what does it cost us to get it out of Big Creek per gallon?
Well, with the nature of our current plant, $2.22 a 1,000 gallons.
And what does it cost us to buy it from Fulton County?
About almost the same, about $2.19 with the fees that are associated with that.
So if we buy it, if we get it out of Big Creek, it's over $2. If we get it out of the ground, it's about 55 cents a gallon.
Yes, sir.
And have we looked at, and have we determined that it's feasible to bring it out of this well?
Yes, sir, we have. And
so the only thing that's holding us right now is the Georgia EPD permit.
Well, yes, but we're currently in design of the actual production facility.
We have a grant from the Corps and the engineers to do that.
And we are working in conjunction with the Corps of Engineers. We have a consultant that is working on the design of that facility to both treat and pump the water and connect it into the distribution system. The feasibility study that Mr. Fleck makes reference to will depend on all of the pieces to be known for the scenario. That was the shallow wells, the potential for the purchase of additional wells that, from Cobb County that are not in use, and the potential for a surface water withdrawal increase. That latter piece is also a permit pending from the Georgia EPD. There are several scenarios. I'll just set up here.
Let's see if Mr. Flex has any other questions before
Okay.
you get into all the different scenarios, because as I understand, there are different sources. There's groundwater from deep wells, groundwater from surface wells, and there's surface water, and we're looking at all of these ways to augment our water supply.
That's correct.
But the deep well, the one we did strike water in, is 55 cents a gallon.
Yes, sir.
25% of the cost of other sources of water.
That's specifically the question, Mayor. Unless you do a feasibility study and come up with some hard facts, a published projected report is just words on a piece of paper. I was wondering whether we had gone any further, since it's been almost 6 months since I brought this subject up before. I see where you have a test well, and I saw where there was funds from the Corps of Engineers, but it seems to me we still don't have a complete economic feasibility study. Would that be fair for me to state that? I mean, I haven't seen anything.
We have a projected cost that you're asking about. We do not have the complete economic study because we don't have the pieces that we just explained.
Okay, do you know when you might have that?
Mr. Fleck,
when is this going to come
Mr. Fleck, if you will, let me tell you this. I'm not supporting another study. I don't think we need to study this thing any further. What I think we need to do is get a permit and get the water. We can study this thing to death.
I'm not asking for more studies. This city does too many damn studies.
Well, so what I'm saying is, if you're asking when are we going to have another feasibility study, we're not. What we're going to do is hopefully start pumping water soon.
Do you know what it's going to cost you?
Our estimate is we will not know exactly what it cost us until we have the system in place, but we estimate the cost to be 55 cents a gallon per 1,000 gallons. 55 cents per 1,000 gallons. And it's within a range plus or minus of 5 cents, and that's That's what we expect it will cost us. And we have completed that analysis. So we expect it to cost us between 50 and 60 cents a thousand.
Okay, so there's not going to be an economic feasibility study as was originally stated when Phase 1 was originally designed.
We've already
Here we
studied
have
the feasibility
Phase
of it.
4, and we still don't have it.
We've already
Okay.
studied the feasibility of it. We're not going to do another one.
Well, I wish you luck. I hope it is 55 cents a gallon, but I don't see as where that was all on the premise of being able to produce 2 million gallons per day, wasn't it?
No, sir. That would be whether it's 2 million gallons or less. We don't believe that the 55 cents is going to go up or down. It's really depending on the sources and what we can get permitted. Whether it's 55 cents a gallon for 450,000 a day or 55 cents a gallon for 2 million a day, it's going to be within the
Throughput
same
has a
range.
significant bearing on cost. Okay, if you're building a purification and a pumping system and everything, yields have a great determination on what your cost per unit gallon is, per 1,000 gallons is. Please.
Mr. Fleck, when it comes to water wells, I think you're incorrect. You know, Mr. Fleck, I get my water from a well today. I've been drinking well water for 61 years now. And you know what kind of purification system I have for that well water?
I don't understand what's your point, sir.
I pull it out of the water. There is no treatment required, or a very low level of treatment required for deep well water in the city of Roswell.
That's right. All it has to do is pass through a gradient of 75 feet. Okay? That's normal. That has been historically true. I was raised on water wells, too. I know a little bit about water, sir. Okay. Well, I'll follow up on this, okay, as going forward. You know, I'd asked you at the last meeting to keep me abreast, and I've heard nothing since, so I felt it was my right to find out what was going on. I did give you the common courtesy of letting you know I did want that information tonight. Okay, Councilman Diamond. Has the annual RPD crime analysis report been done yet?
We have the quarterly, but I'm
I'm talking the fiscal year. The annual fiscal year crime analysis report that took 2.5 years to get produced and was only produced because Kalia was showing up at the last minute, okay? I want, Councilwoman Wynn's department has already had their fiscal analysis presented. It was presented, I believe, a couple meetings ago. I was wondering how long before we get the crime analysis report. I mean, just had some young lady come up here and talk about her fear for her child's safety, and yet we've only had one annualized crime analysis in the last 3.5 years now.
Mr. Fleck, that's not my recollection, but let's call someone who has more expertise than I do, Lieutenant McGee, and see if he can answer your question.
Why do I need to talk to a lieutenant? I'm talking to a city councilman.
Because
they have more authority, I would think, since they're the liaison with the police department, the current staff of the police department.
Mr. Fleck, I'm calling.
I don't have any disregard for Lieutenant McGee.
You are now out of order. I'm going to call Lieutenant McGee to come forward to answer the question as he understood it. Lieutenant McGee, do you understand the question?
Yes, sir.
You have an answer?
Yes, sir.
And your answer is?
Yearly crime stats are out.
And is this an annual report?
Yes, sir.
When did it come out?
I believe a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Do we do an annual report every year?
Yes, we do.
And do we do that within a few months of when is our typical close for the annual report? What time span do we look at?
We try to do it as close to the beginning of the year as possible.
Is that the fiscal year or the calendar year?
That's going to be the fiscal year.
So the fiscal year would be ending June 31st?
Correct.
June 30th. And we do an annual report every year?
Yes, sir.
Within a few months of that report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fleck, the floor is now yours again.
Well, I'm afraid that I disagree with Lieutenant McKee, as he was present at the CALEA presentation. Okay? What I'm talking about is not the crime statistics that are posted on the website. I'm talking about the printed fiscal annual crime analysis report that is published in hard copy and had been up until 3.5 years ago, and was again published the day before the CALEA representatives came in September of last year. Am I not correct with that date? August or September, when they showed up. You're well aware of how I presented that issue when CALEA was here, as many of you were. Okay? The fiscal year annual, the fiscal year crime analysis report is an in-depth analysis of crime trends within the city. It's not just numbers that are on the website. And it has, to my knowledge, I didn't check last night, but to my knowledge, I have not seen that report. And I have had a family member who has requested that on numerous occasions over the last since July 1st, and have been advised that it's still not ready. Okay, Mr. Eichelhart. Mr. Eichelhart, you and I have been in communication with regard to the resolution dealing with basically nepotism that was passed in 2004. I had requested to know if that was your signature, and the reason I want to talk about this is because you are the only surviving council person who signed that document. As you see, Mr. Orleans never signed it. 6 years later, still hasn't signed it. And I got this, and I presented this all to you in December of 2008. So the reason I'm coming to you, Mr. Eichelhart, is because you should have, or be the only one, who knows what the intent of this ordinance was. Now, granted, the mayor signed it also, but his signature is nothing more than a tacit approval of an ordinance that was passed by 4 of the 6 council members who signed it. Now, my questions here are going to lead to additional questions that I have of Kay Love. Is that your signature?
As I've told you in other forums, and I will tonight, of course it's my signature.
Oh, okay. You never admitted to that. Okay.
But whether I do or not, it's kind of a silly grandstanding to even ask that question, but I'll go along with you.
No, you'll see where I'm going with this if you allow me the courtesy to continue without saying I'm grandstanding. Because this issue has been in existence and was presented 2 years ago. Now, do I need to read this, or have you all had the opportunity the last 2 years to read this resolution?
If you're going to be asking questions about the ordinance, it would be appropriate to
very well
to put the language up there, because my memory is not perfect.
Okay. And I hope you can see it. I can't tell what you can see on your monitor.
If I can get some assistance in the technology here from somebody.
I'm not going to go into the first part. That's pretty self-explanatory. What I want to do is read from this point on down. I think where I've highlighted,
please
you may not be able to see it.
Please proceed.
Any employee, including department heads, and I want to reemphasize that, may not hire or supervise directly or indirectly any immediate family member within his or her department. This includes relationships formed during employment. This also applies to relationships formed due to promotions and demotions. Should such immediate family relationship form during employment, it is not incumbent upon the city to create a new position to accommodate the policy constraints. Therefore, termination of either employee affected must take place. Immediate family members of incumbent department heads may not be hired in other departments as city employees. The date on this was, as you see here, in 2004. Now, what I want clarification, Mr. Eichelhardt, was based on your response to my question about this ordinance. I'm not going to go to the first sentence, that's irrelevant. It says this was passed in response to this situation, which means it only applies from that point forward. And the situation I was alluding to was, of course, in the police department, the Watsons. I'm not going to tiptoe around it. Now, this is the point that I want to find out whether you are still in concurrence with this, that this ordinance means that the lines of responsibility have since been set to keep her from reporting to her husband. Is that an accurate statement? Do you believe that this ordinance means just what you stated?
Well, if I worried about making sure every single word was exact, then I would probably say my understanding is...
Come on, Mr.
But, well, you're being ridiculous, so I'll be ridiculous back. But the lines of responsibility, yes, I agree, that's correct, and our city attorney can clarify that if you want further clarification.
Very well. Mrs. Love, I'm not exactly sure who, it's probably somebody in the police department. This is the current organizational chart for the Roswell Police Department, is that correct? It's dated...
I can't see the date.
It's dated 10/16/2010. It was the attachment to...
Is it the one that I sent you?
Yes, ma'am.
Assuming it's the one that I sent you, I haven't read everything on here, then yes, sir, it would be.
Okay. And if you remember, I certainly could find Mrs. Watson, but I could not find John Watson anywhere on this schematic, so I wrote back to you and I asked you, thank you for the chart, but I noticed the distinct absence of John Watson's name. Is the major so noted at the head of the Support Services Division section, one and the same, or is this a to-be-determined position? Your answer was, yes, Major Watson is over the support services. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Mr. Eichelhardt, then, would you say that the fact that Mr. Major Watson is in that position, that he complies with the answer you gave me, that the lines of responsibility have since been set to keep her from reporting to her husband? It's obvious. There she is, there he is. Now, I want to remind you that I had a personal friend...
I'm not going to get into explaining how a chart works, but that is not correct.
What's not correct? That's what I got.
Mr. Fleck, I think an important point is that when the ordinance was changed back in 2004, the Watsons at that time were already married. And so, therefore, as the ordinance has changed, we don't go back and require people to change that situation. The organization of the police department, at the chief's discretion related to the majors, and I'm sure you know over the years, we've had more than 2 majors. And so as the times have passed, people have retired, we've eliminated a major position, eliminated other positions to put more police officers on the street. So there might have been changes and movement made, and we know that, yes, John Watson cannot supervise his wife, who happens to be Frances Watson. However, the move was not made because of that and that alone.
Fine. I'm talking about going forward, please.
So going forward, yes, he's over support
this situation,
services.
there would be no reason for Mr. Watson to directly supervise his wife
correct.
In the police
her current
department.
Position,
Good.
right. Both
Good.
of them could change positions tomorrow.
Good. And I'm glad that we've made that, put that into the public record.
It's all a matter of public record, and it has been.
Folks, don't talk over each other. I'd like one person to complete their sentence before the other person begins theirs.
Let me try and explain to you why I think that's important, okay, from personal experience. I have a personal friend who works Secret Service internal security. And aside from periodically protecting presidents and stuff like this, his main job is to make sure that employees and agents don't get caught in compromising situations, financially, sexually, however it might be. Okay, it's a full-time job. And I think that as a counselor, you need to make sure that your law enforcement department does not in any way ever become suspect because of a husband and wife situation, one supervising the other. But since you said that would not happen, that's what I really wanted to hear. I have one final thing that I'd like to know a little bit more about. In 2009, y'all passed an ordinance, which is still on the books. Okay? You may remember the stormwater utility ordinance. You passed that ordinance, and in fact, you put it into effect, but you did not come up with a fee structure. So you had no revenue for that. But basically, I presume that ordinance, which is still on your website, is current. Is that right? I guess I'll answer my own questions. Yes, it is. One of the things that was brought up during that entire project, there were state and federal regulations, regulatory compliance issues that totaled nearly $5 million out of a total projection of almost $15 million of stormwater improvements, maintenance, repair, what have you. That was projected to be dispersed over a 5-year period. There's the total was 13.6. These were your regulatory requirements, and these were your CIP or your system-wide improvements and your maintenance and repair. How far along are we on addressing any of these compliance issues?
Mr. Mooring, are you the best person to respond to that question? I'm going to presume he's the guy to ask.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Despite the fact that we do not have the fee structure from the stormwater utility, we have continued to comply with our permit requirements. Since the time that this was developed, we're 2 years into this plan, and we are fully in compliance with the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District and Georgia EPD requirements. We have continuing responsibilities, and the big part of that cost is the requirement to inspect and maintain 20% of the system every year, so that basically there's over a 5-year period you fully inspect the system. We have detailed on a number of occasions the backlog of both maintenance and capital projects, but as of this date, with respect to the permit requirements, we are in compliance.
Mr. Bourne, don't sit down yet. Mr. Fleckman have other questions.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. Is there anywhere I can get supplemental information? Because I remember when this was presented, there was a lot of supplemental information which delineated which projects were required. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you update me using that? That was only a year ago, fiscal year 2009. Can you tell me where we stand on these regulatory requirements? I mean, what have we actually done financially? And you say we are in compliance, but and that you're looking at 20%. But what does that mean in terms of projects that you had originally earmarked when this utility was analyzed in really it was 08 when it was passed?
The answer is yes. We can provide that information. The information that is available in existing reports can be copied for you. If you want further embellishment, then I would have to be directed by Mayor and Council to prepare such a report.
No, if you can just give me where we were and
Yeah, I'm not
what we've
prepared
done.
to do it tonight.
No, sir.
Just call.
No, I didn't warn you about that.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Who'd like to speak next? Yes, sir. Come forward. Give us your name and address. The floor is yours.
My name is Andrew Wordies. I live at 335 Alpine Drive.
Speak to the mic, please.
My name is Andrew Wordies. I live at 335 Alpine Drive, and I'm here to discuss numerous things. First of all, my house and my neighbor's house were involved in floods. We were told that Roswell was going to apply through the FEMA program to try to get buyout money for us. Marietta, Powder Springs, Woodstock, Austell are closing on the properties they got FEMA money for now. I want to know, did Roswell, after they assessed our homes, did they apply to FEMA for the buyout money? And if so, what happened?
Mrs. Love, can you respond to that question, please?
We did not apply for that buyout program because the assessment that was done, and actually your property was the main one, the other home did not meet the original criteria. And I don't know all the terms, the technical terms, but is a substantially compromised property. And so the ratios that FEMA provides, your property did not meet that.
Is anyone aware that if they had called FEMA, that there was a memo in the file that they were going to push mine through because they don't want to continue to pay out on flood insurance that I now have?
We did speak with the FEMA representatives. As a matter of fact, they came here and met with us after the floods of September. As I'm assuming that's the time period that you're talking about, 2009 flood.
Correct.
We met with them about what programs were available. We had a specific contact that was assigned to them. I spoke with him directly, as did our city engineer, in working through that. He did not reference any memo or anything in the file. Obviously, they pay claims based upon that. Obviously, properties that are in floodplains are considered differently under the programs, and as you're well aware, there are a variety of programs with FEMA related to the flooding. And I do believe that our city engineer and then our also stormwater engineer came out as well and did some assessments.
Okay. My next question would be, in 06 you all did a study that determined that you had severe stormwater programs. Stormwater issues that needed to be dealt with. One of them was the regulatory compliance that was going to need $4.6 million, system improvements for $3.8 million, and $4 million on maintenance. How much of that has been spent to keep the system operating and bring it into federal compliance that may have kept my property from flooding?
Mr. Mooring, Mr. Mayor, would need to answer that
Mr. Mooring, if
question.
you come to the microphone, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The same answer as the last time. We have done the regulatory compliance issues that have been required under our permit. However, I think you prefaced or ended your question with to do the things that would prevent your property from being flood prone, and there was nothing in the city stormwater program that would keep your property from being flood prone. You're in a flood zone, and that's,
Well, my property isn't flooding because I'm in a flood zone. It's flooding because there's no maintenance on the creek, and also the opening at Highway 9 is insufficient for the flow of water. I've got pictures here to show the bridge as of today. It's a third of the way blocked. Even when it's open, there's not enough opening. There's not enough square footage for the volume of water that flows through there due to the impervious surfaces that have been developed north and west of me. Would you like to see these pictures?
If you'd like to tender those into the record, we'd be glad to accept them.
I would.
You will give those to Ms. Love, please.
So of this $4.6 million to bring it into compliance, you're saying that's been done?
No, sir. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we are in compliance with our permit. We have spent the requisite amounts of money. I can't tell you tonight just exactly how much that has been.
When did you come into compliance?
We have not been out of compliance.
Okay. Of the system improvements, have any of those been done? And if so, do you know percentage-wise?
Do you want me to go through this, or what would you like?
Well, I think the question was, have any system improvements been done?
Yes, system improvements have been done. Again, I can't sit here tonight and document the amount of money, but I mean, it's all part of our annual budget recap information. But for the last couple of years, we have budgeted $300,000 for capital improvements over and above the basic O&M.
Okay. Also, the City Council wrote a stormwater utility bill that was supposed to be funded, and if I'm correct, there was never any movement after that to get it funded. Am I understanding that correct?
There has been nothing implemented yet. There has been movement, but there has not been a fee implemented. There is one under serious consideration right now, and I would anticipate shortly we will have a stormwater fee, but has not yet passed this council.
Okay. Well, I'd like the City Council to know that their lack of managing the stormwater has resulted in the financial death of one family already in the floodplain. That's my neighbors. Also, can anyone tell me when this redevelopment plan was written? And what kind of a timeline there is for
Someone would
this?
have to take it. Alice Wakefield, if you take a look at that. And first tell us if that is the current redevelopment plan for the city of Roswell.
Can't give you the exact date, but this looks like it's part of the Midtown Roswell Redevelopment Plan, the LCI. Which
So that's our current plan.
That's a current
plan. And that
plan,
LCI
yes.
actually was passed several years ago,
Yes, sir.
2004.
Do they have any timeline for implementing it?
No hard timeline. There is no as the market and the development warrants.
Will this show up if I put it on the screen?
I expect it will. Yes, sir.
What I find interesting is this area right here. That's 335 and 325 Alpine Drive. That's my property and my neighbor's property that are prone to flood. The city redevelopment vision shows that as a city park and green space. My question is, for the city to make it into a park and green space, they'd have to own it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. My next question would be, what are their plans for obtaining the property when I have offered it to the city?
I know of no current plans to obtain your property, Mr. Wordies.
Is there any plan to do any stormwater add any fees to start working on the stormwater problem?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When you say the problem, I'm not sure specifically about your specific piece of property, but there currently is serious discussion about implementation of a stormwater fee. And that was heard at the last work session. Last committee. Was it work session? Yes. Last work session a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, now I'd like to discuss some code enforcement action that's been going on. Being unevenly enforced. Across the creek from me, there's 600 to 800 feet of property behind Roswell Rents and a used store, rental place, and a car dealership, I believe, that has been clear cut, and it was cut years ago. My neighbor and I continually complained about it because when they cut the stream buffer, they took down big trees. That means we no longer look at a tree line. We now look at Alpharetta Highway. As of today, that tree line still hasn't been restored. They've got a fence, and I believe I've got pictures of it right here, that is immediately above the creek and in some places even undermines the creek. I've got some other pictures too. I'll bring them all up at one time. Here's a pipe from their property that is discharging water from their impervious surfaces into the creek.
If you put it on the overhead, the mayor and council can see the picture. If you lay that picture down on the overhead over that redevelopment map, they could see the picture that you're referencing.
This right here is not a good picture, but here's the fence here and here. I think this shows it clear. Here's a fence post, and here's a fence post. All this runs immediately on the creek. At most, it'd be 2 to 3 feet off of the water line of the creek. In some places, the creek is even undercut. So the fence technically is above the creek. On the front of their property, they've got discharge from all their impervious surfaces going into the creek. They've added to those impervious surfaces in the back, just exacerbating an already bad problem. Here is a house about 8 houses down from me, 4 doors down and then 4 doors down. The guy's running an auto repair shop. He has built a carport. He has built a fence. The fence is right on the property line. There are numerous zoning violations here. The neighbors have called repeatedly. They've come down here, yet nothing has ever been done about his zoning violations. I had a stack of pictures, they must have gotten stuck in the printer, of other zoning violations in the same neighborhood where no one has done anything, and I'm aware that there has been calls made. Of course, this is leading to the point where I've been harassed by the Code Enforcement Department. Vicki Barkley has taken it upon herself to call my mortgage holder and question her as to whether I was current on my payments or not, which is far and beyond the scope of her professional duties. I mean, she's supposed to enforce the code. She's not supposed to be going and looking into people's personal lives. Once she determined that I was behind on my mortgage payment, She told my, well, first I'll start off where I've lived in the house for 14 years. Since I started on a lease option in '96. Since that time, I've paid in $240,000 in payment to my mortgage holder. Additionally, in 2002, after the initial flood, that was the first time the property started flooding, I spent $13,000 repairing the flood. In 2004, I spent another $37,000 out of my pocket on the property. So, to this date, not including what I spent on the last flood, I've spent $290,000 I've spent into that property. Ken Engelhardt stated to a third party that I'm in a foreclosure status, and that was why it's okay for Vicki Barkley to call my mortgage holder. I will state I am not in a foreclosure process. I am not, and I have not been. So that's a false statement.
If you look, I did not say those words, that you're in foreclosure.
Excuse me?
You're not telling the right comments.
I still didn't hear you.
I did not say that you are in foreclosure or that you are being foreclosed upon. I think I said you're in a foreclosure situation, which involves a whole realm of where you are. So I'm just saying that I did not state falsely.
A foreclosure situation?
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to allow Mr. Andrew to make his statement and ask questions. And once he's had an opportunity to speak, then Councilman Eichelhardt, any other council members who wish to respond will too. But we're not going to get into an argument. We're going to allow the citizens to ask questions and make statements, and then we'll give the council members a chance to respond if they wish to.
Okay. Well, she questioned her as to whether I was behind on my payments, stated he can't pay his lawyer, so he can't pay you. She also told her that he didn't pay his water bill and they're on the way to shut it off if they haven't already, and that they're going to take enforcement actions against me, and if she doesn't get me out of the house, they'll take enforcement actions against me and the house. This caused my 84-year-old mortgage holder, who's a widow and lives off her investments, to become very concerned about my stability. At the time, there were no enforcement actions against me. I think this crosses the line. I think what she did was illegal. I believe, and I've been told, it violates federal privacy laws, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, because Roswell is in fact one of my creditors, since I have my water through them, and it very likely violates criminal statutes. I don't think there's any way the city can possibly have a fair investigation when they, in fact, may be held liable if she is charged with these things that she's done. I'm asking the mayor and the city council to request an outside investigation by an impartial third party to look into this. I don't think having the fox guard the hen house is a good thing to do, and I don't think that a longtime city employee should be investigated by her boss when she could possibly have committed criminal and civil acts that could impact the city. I think it's I just don't think it's right. I don't think I can get a fair shake, and I don't think the justice system is designed to work that way. After my code enforcement violations, I've made every possible improvement to my property I can. I've cleaned the front yard. I've cleaned it in every way I could. The house has been painted. There have been church groups helping me. I've had neighbors helping me. But it seems no matter how hard I work, there seems to be someone from code enforcement that keeps breathing down my neck and leaving other people that are doing much worse things alone. It's gotten to the point where even the police department's in on it now. 30 traffic stops in a year, and for 10 years before that I had 3 or 4 every time I turn around. Just last week, one of my friends called me and said, I don't know what's going on. He said, but police cars driving up and down your block in front of your house. So I was at Home Depot. As I turned onto Alpine Drive, all of a sudden a policeman came flying up behind me when I was a couple doors down from my house, turned on the lights. I pulled into my yard after he started turning on the siren. Second police car pulled up. They had me stand out behind my car, spread eagle, with my hands behind me for 10 minutes with their lights flashing while a third car circled for a broken tail light. I think that's excessive. I see them doing drunk driving stops out here in the middle of the night with one car. This needs to come out. You people need to know what's going on. This is not Nazi Germany. Y'all need to behave like a city in America. Again, I'm going to request that the mayor and the city council bring in an independent third party to hold an investigation into the behavior of Vicky Barclay.
Anything else, Mr. Porteous?
That's it.
This time, does the council have any statements or comments they'd like to make? Thank you, Mr. Wordies. Anyone else wish to speak tonight? Yes, come forward, please. You'll give us your name and address.
Jennifer Wagner, 1040 Terramont Drive, and I am here about the proposed location of Fire Station Number 4. It's proposed either for Terramont Subdivision or Big Creek. That's where we're at right now. And I obviously live in Terramont, and I wanted to make sure that we've talked about this before, but I want to make sure that you all understand that that Terramont property is supposed to be a park. And I understand the need for the fire station. I understand why they need a fire station. I agree that they need a fire station. I do not agree that we should use park land for a fire station, most especially when there is other property that is available. I'm not sure if y'all can read that. What I'm looking at is...
Can I get a little help from technical folks so we can get
there
that?
we go. It's the paragraph that starts the purpose. The purpose of this instrument is to convey title to the above described property to the City of Roswell for the use of its citizens as a public park, and the use of said property is hereby restricted to such use in accordance with the agreement reached between the parties in open session of the Roswell City Council on July 6, 1976, as reflected in the minutes thereof.
Do we have a copy of those minutes?
I got them from you. Oh, yes. So, yes.
All right, I'll be looking at. I haven't seen this before.
Well, then I'm glad I brought it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Love, if you would give me a copy of those minutes and that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Certainly. The other thing was that the meeting notices, the public information meeting notices, Martin's Landing has, of course, been invited to the meeting tomorrow, which is on Big Creek, the proposed station being at Big Creek property versus Terramont. Terramont had their public information meeting on September 30th, I believe it was. And there were email notifications, and Kay was kind enough to send forward to me what was sent out to Martin's Landing, but that information did not get disseminated. I realize that's not council's fault. But since it did not get disseminated to Martin's Landing, you don't look like you're following me, Kay. Did I lose you somewhere?
I'm following you. Please
okay.
Proceed.
So Martin's Landing has now disseminated the information skewed to, they are the person who forwarded it anyway, in favor of the station being at Terramont. And Martin's Landing is maybe 2,000 plus homes, and Terramont is 200. we're going to go into the meeting tomorrow significantly outnumbered, and I'm concerned that perhaps council has had some discussion with Martin's Landing about the benefit to them of it being at Terramont, and of course I think that that's wrong, but I just wanted to kind of bring it to your attention and see if anyone wanted to fess up to it or if we need to even talk about it. I don't know. I just thought I would mention it.
I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Okay.
Yes, let me before I recognize counsel, anything else you wish to say on this point?
One other small thing, it's not necessarily on that point, but the information that I'm getting, I'm doing through ORA, and I'm curious to know why in the records that I received back, and I did a supplemental request also, and even in the records that I have received back, there was absolutely no mention of the cell tower that was built on park land in 1991. Nothing.
Well, I'm not sure how that's relevant.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure how that's material or relevant.
Well,
there's lots of things that aren't mentioned. The fact that I live in Roswell is not mentioned.
Well, no, but the documents that I requested were all documents pertaining to Terramont Park, and I would think that there would be some document in the possession of City of Roswell.
Well, we may have overlooked it. If we have, I apologize. If you've got a more specific request, maybe we can take a second look. You may specifically request anything having to do with the cell tower there. We're not perfect up here.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it.
I think I've got some council members who wish to make some comments. Councilmember Nancy Diamond.
Jennifer, you had asked me to let you know when there was going to be a meeting on the Big Creek or any other things concerning that move.
Right.
And several other people have done the same thing. So it may have been me that said, to you and to some people in Martin's Landing and some people just in surrounding homes who had requested to know when the next meeting was. I did give that information because that was what was requested. So I may be the leak.
No, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, but I've had people from Martin's Landing contact me, ask me for the meeting, and I gave them that information also because if anybody's going to call me, I'm going to give them that information. And just tell them that it's for Big Creek and for that fire station.
I'm sorry?
I told them it was about the Big Creek fire station location.
Okay.
And gave them all the information that they needed.
And I don't disagree. I think that's the right thing to do. And as, that goes for what you did also, Nancy. My concern, I suppose, was that someone had perhaps gotten the word out to Martin's Landing in a way that, their email to their residents was more, we didn't have anyone.
I can assure you that the information that went to Martin's Landing did not take a position. This council has not taken a position. We're open-minded. We're looking at all potential sites. And I can tell you the fact that a neighborhood may have taken a position would not be the first time a neighborhood has taken a position on a subject either for or against what this council is doing. The council does not control those neighborhoods.
Okay.
They take positions based upon their own judgment.
Of course. Okay, well.
Just as we haven't controlled your neighborhood's position.
Right. Okay, here's one other thing. Here's a cute little drawing I did I took the proposed station that was drawn for the property in Terramont, and I drew it to scale on the existing property. It doesn't have a cute park, and it doesn't have any stormwater drains, but it has the drive-through driveway, it has the 3-bay engine room, it's got the 2-story station, and it has 20 parking spots. And I even put a flagpole in front. I just thought that you should see that it could actually go where it currently is.
That was actually my first choice, but I'm sure staff will take a second look at it.
Okay. And then that's it. That's
Thank
all
you.
I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Orleans has a comment.
Okay.
Jennifer, I'm going from memory, okay, so maybe off. But many, many years ago, we set up a cell tower policy on city land. So it may not have been, once that policy was in place, the cell tower could go on a city spot, and it would not have necessarily come to us as an individual basis. if that's what you were looking for.
Can you repeat that one more time? Just let me.
We set up a policy citywide for how cell towers would be dealt with on city properties. So an individual piece of property may not have come directly into the council if you were looking for minutes that were reflecting on a cell tower. If that's what you were thinking of.
Thank you. I guess I was more thinking just any document, whether it be minutes or an agreement. There must be some lease.
If there is a lease of a cell tower on city property, we'll have it.
Right.
Yeah, a lease would be there.
And if that's what you're looking for, Mrs. Love will find it for you.
I was not necessarily interested in reading the agreement as much as I had put in a request and documents were missing. That's all.
Well, we'll see if there is a cell tower on this Terramont Parkland property. We'll find the lease.
Okay.
Our city attorneys would not allow that cell tower without a lease. I can trust me.
I bet they'll be all over it. Have no doubt.
And if we don't have a lease, we're not collecting rent, so we'll be really all over it.
You are collecting rent, and it's going into the general fund and not the park fund. Just FYI, even though it's on a park. But that's part of the cell tower policy. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else in the audience wish to comment? This is your last chance. Going once, going twice. We are adjourned. Thank you for... Attorney's report. We have one more. The public comment session is concluded. We're going to have an attorney's report.
City attorney makes a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel and acquisition of real estate.
Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Witt. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned.